everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today I wanted to share my birth experience of Everleigh, how I was able to have to go through natural childbirth with her without an epidural. I have very strong feelings about birth. I feel like in many ways with Lydia I was very cheated out of what I wanted out of birth. I did exactly what they said, and I trusted these doctors, and I didn't argue. With Everleigh, I did way more research. After being induced with Lydia, and about 2.5 hours into being induced, I got an epidural, which was not what I wanted. I realized that I needed to do more research. I needed to know what I could advocate for. So I picked up my phone one day and I Googled breathing exercises, which then led me to hypnobirthing. I know the word hypnobirthing is something that many people have heard of, but a lot of people are like, nothing is going to help me get through pushing a baby out. Or people hear it and they're like, this is something goofy. You know, I know a lot of people think of it and it's like, oh, this is for crazy hippie people that believe in the natural way of things, and oh, this is just a scam. But I'm telling you, I do not have a high tolerance for pain. I'm a wimp. I do not like pain. Pain scares me. The thought of being in pain scares me. It makes me so sick. I'm nauseous. I vomit if I'm in so much pain. I can describe labor as one of the worst experiences, one of the most painful experiences. But you also have to understand that man-made contractions, and when I say man-made contractions, I mean induced contractions, when they come in and they break your water and they administer Pitocin, is way more painful than natural contractions, and I have experienced that firsthand. Birth is not meant to be pleasant. It's not meant to feel good. In the Bible, it said that birth would be multiplied. The pain of birth would be multiplied because of Adam and Eve in the garden. But the main thing is fear. Fear itself. Fear of pain. And every mom is going to experience it. Every mom will go into labor scared. And the whole point of hypnobirthing is to eliminate fear from your mind. Speaking words of affirmation over yourself. Coming to a calm place, relaxing every single muscle, unclenching your jaw, relaxing your eyes, completely just letting go. And I can tell you that if I can do it, anyone can. And I will say it was one of the most beautiful experiences of my life, truly. It was painful. It was. But you have to have a good support system. You have to know what you can advocate for. And you have to know your body. Know what you can handle. And there is no shame in an epidural. I love an epidural. I'll tell you that now. I love an epidural. In those last final moments before Everleigh came out, I asked for an epidural. However, it could have been completely different, and I hope with our next child it is. We don't have any plans of having babies at the moment. We want to wait till Everleigh's probably about 3 to start trying again. Just to give ourselves a little break and a little bit of time to devote to our 2 girls and to each other. But I'm just going to dive right into it. A few months prior to having Everleigh, we had just moved back to Georgia from Kansas, and I was YouTubing hypnobirthing music. I was always told, create a playlist, recite Bible verses in your head or words of affirmation. Have your husband recite words of affirmation over you, like, you can do this. This is your body. God made my body. He made my body to be able to do this. I can do this. I have the strength. I have God. I have my husband. I have support. I can do this. And it's in those moments that you're reciting that are the hardest moments. That's when you need those words of affirmation read over you. But it had been, I think I was about, I want to say it was at the end of August. We had moved mid-August back to Georgia. And I found Hypnobirthing videos. And I'll put those links in the description below. They were wonderful. It starts off with a woman's voice, spring water, and almost nature sounds like wind blowing and through trees and leaves rustling. And to me, that is my peace. Some people like ocean water, like the waves crashing. I enjoyed that too. But what is normal for me is sitting on a porch swing and hearing the trees rustle from the wind and birds chirping and crickets and things like that chirping in the background, the grass blowing, things like that brought me a lot of peace. And it starts off like that, and then a woman's voice very soothingly came over and said, this is your time, this is you and your baby. Go to a very calm state, eliminate fear from your mind, don't even feel fear. If you ever had faith, if you ever have experienced faith, you know how like in the hardest times at some point after being so down, you're like, okay, everything's gonna be okay. God has this. And many of us have experienced that in our lives. And that's what I did the whole time during labor. I said, okay, anytime I felt like I couldn't do it anymore, I said, okay, God has this. I've got this. I can do it. It's good. All is well. I'm gonna do this. And you go to a place and she says, now relax your forehead. Uncrease those lines on your forehead. Now work your way down your eyes. I want you to slowly relax your eyelids. Let them just sink. Okay, then relax your cheeks. Unclench your jaw. Relax your mouth. Let it fall open. I know it sounds silly, and you're gonna laugh. I laughed my tail off listening to this the first time I listened to it, but then I really got in a very serious state. I'm like, this is my job. When I got into that mindset that I can do this and I have to do this, this is my job, I'm gonna focus on this and I'm gonna give it all I have. It's amazing how easy labor came. I really thought it was gonna be what it was the first time. But the first time with my little Lydia, everything was induced. That was all Pitocin in me, making these man-made contractions that in so many ways doesn't help the labor process in many ways. It doesn't let your body naturally do what it's going to do. So it's almost like two lanes of traffic merging into one and colliding. Although it's supposed to help labor, in a lot of ways it makes for a longer delivery process. And then typically 95% of women get epidurals. And you wonder why, because of how intense these contractions are. They are nothing, I can tell you firsthand, they are nothing like natural contractions. They're not. Mine should not have been intense, but because they broke my water immediately, they were extremely intense. They broke my water that morning and administered Pitocin all at the same time with Lydia. So it was very intense. So my body couldn't naturally do what it was going to do. It was like it was stopping my body and it was taking over. Therefore, I felt out of control. I felt fear. I had reached my pain threshold and I said, I can't do it anymore. And I got the epidural. And then typically with an epidural, it slows everything down. We're ready to have this baby already, but yet it's going to slow it down. After getting that epidural at about 10:30, it took another 7 hours. Granted, I want everyone to understand when I say this, labor can go 70 hours. Labor can last for days, and that's normal. But the thing about doctor's offices is they've got to refill those beds. They've got to get you out as fast as possible and get another woman in, because that's how they make their money. So typically after about 14 hours of labor, they want to put you in a C-section. Typically, many doctors are like that. It's a very sad but true thing. And I understand if you're tired and you're done, that is all your decision. If you want that C-section, you go for it. But I also want everyone to understand that that's a serious surgery. The recovery time is serious. It's long. It's hard. I have high respect for some C-section mamas, and y'all are amazing. Because that was the one thing I didn't want, that I prayed. I said, please don't let them cut me open. It's all I prayed for, and a healthy baby. Please don't let that be the way that my baby has to come into the world. I'm not against any way you choose to labor, but for mothers who want a natural childbirth, I'm here to help you. Because I'm sorry, there's not enough resources out there to help you do this. Hospitals are against you. That they're extremely against anything that isn't planned and convenient to their time and schedule. It's the sad but true way it is. They want to get the baby out as fast as possible, quickly, safely, so that they don't have a mess on their hands, and I'm all for that. My baby's safety is first priority over mine. But they don't realize that these interventions are worse for your child. And a lot of people aren't supportive of that. A lot of hospitals aren't. Although there is magnitudes of research showing that the least amount of intervention is best for your baby. And for you and for your recovery. I will tell you now that natural childbirth, I was up and walking right after having her. I was ready to. I felt good. An epidural, unfortunately, it took a little bit longer than that. And I was tired. I didn't feel my contractions to know the safest way to push, to feel the urgency of pushing and the way I'm supposed to push, because your contractions will guide you to that. And because of that, I tore and I had abrasions. With Everleigh, I did not tear. I did not have any abrasions, and she came out fast. She dropped, rolled, and came out extremely fast. And that is a very uncommon to not tear and not have abrasions when delivering that fast. But I truly think it is because of how I was pushing. I was able to get those cues from the doctor, but also feel my body and what my body was doing. Now, I am going to go from start to finish of how our birth story went. It was about 11 o'clock, and me and Lydia had already had breakfast, and we went for a walk. We were going to go down to a church's park that they have that they were like. I didn't want to go to the one that I knew was always open, so it was a bit more of a walk, and I didn't want to overdo myself being so pregnant. This was October the 18th, the day before our due date. And so we walked down there. The gates were locked. So we came back down Eldridge Street, turned on to Hickory Street, and I said, you know what? I need to get this car cleaned out. I need to make sure our car seats are good and clean. I had just washed them, so I was putting them back on. I had already washed the babies like twice before that, but with the move and everything, I just felt the urgency to wash it again. Lydia had been sick too, a little before that, and so I really wanted everything clean, sterilized, Lysol'd the car, vacuumed the car. And about halfway through it, I started getting a little bit of just discomfort. I said, okay, I might have probably just overdone it a little bit. This is more active than I've been. And I had walked the day before with Zach's stepmama at Guido's. I think we walked probably 2.5 miles. I don't remember, but I want to say that's what she said. And I was like, okay, you know, I'm about to pop any day. So I went inside, fed Lydia lunch. She was getting fuzzy. I'd finished the car. I had packed the bag, loaded the bag. I was like, it's gonna be any day. I better get all this done. I had already had the bag packed. I took out things. I'm like, we don't need that. There's no reason for us to need that. So I went through everything, got everything done. Got everything loaded, and I put Lydia down. I was getting ready to put her down, and she actually fell asleep on my chest. And what a beautiful moment that was, to soak in that last time as her as an only child in a way, not having a sister to also be tended to. It was just a very pleasant moment. And so I laid her down, and I laid her down beside me. I never laid her in her crib because I was going to have to wake her up early from her nap, and we were going to have to go pick up Daddy. Well, I had sat down and I started having contractions. I started timing them. I want to say it was probably almost 1 o'clock, and started having contractions, and I think I had to take Lydia to the doctor's office early. I think that's what it was. I took her to the doctor's office on our way to see Zach to get this other shot. It was just a drop-in visit. I didn't even have to make an appointment, and I think that's why I was going to have to wake her up early, because I wanted to take her before I picked up Zach. That way Zach didn't have to sit in the car. He had been driving for 20 hours at that point, no rest. They let him just take over to get his last few hours in. That way he could be released and be on his own. So Zach was extremely tired. I woke her up, and or no, I didn't wake her up yet. I remember calling the doctor and saying, look, I want to say this was Thursday. I'll have to go back and recheck, but I went and I'd been timing them. So then I called my doctor and I said, I'm getting kind of nervous. We had already spoke to them about possibly being induced if the baby wasn't here by Monday. And I was all for that because I knew Zach would be home by that point. I knew he was leaving out on Friday and wouldn't be home till Sunday night. So if we had a planned induction on Monday, then we would know he couldn't leave out on Sunday night. We could plan it. But if we had a planned time, he can take off. They were great with working around his schedule. But if I went into labor Thursday night, that night, I think we were picking him up, and then he had to leave out Friday. And I was really nervous about me going into labor Friday after dropping him off. I was like, okay, this baby either has to come today, or I have to get into the hospital today, or something. I remember feeling that, like, if not, what if she comes during the weekend and he misses it? Because he was going down to, like, Florida, I think. I mean, he was going to be a good 9 hours from us. I think he was going to Miami or somewhere. He was going to be about 9 hours from us. And I remember, like, okay, I've talked to the doctor. If she's not here by Monday, we're going to. But then those contractions, like, gave me so much hope. I was like, okay, these are serious. So I called the doctor and I said, look, they're not painful, but they feel a little bit more than Braxton Hicks, and they're in many ways consistent. I think they were coming about 7 or 8 minutes apart and lasting about a minute and a half. So granted, it was early labor, but like, I knew that this would be enough to put me in the hospital. I just had that gut feeling. I said I would feel better if I came in and y'all checked me, because I really think I'm going to have this baby today or tomorrow. And they said, okay, we would rather you come in as well. So you come on in. I said, okay, well, I've got to take my daughter to get her last shot and drop her off with my mom, and I'm picking up my husband as soon as he gets home. He's a truck driver. They said, that's fine. Just if it gets serious, you come on. At the time, Zach and I only had one vehicle. So I went over there, we got her shot, and I had her bag packed. I have one big diaper bag for both of their stuff. Then I had Everleigh'S hospital bag, and I had Lydia's bag while we were in the hospital. My mom was going to keep her here, take off work and keep her, well, not here, but at the house we were living in at the time. That way she could be normal and on her schedule. She'd go down for her nap at normal time. She would go to bed at normal time. We would just do everything and make it convenient for her, because it was already going to be such a big change having another little one in the house. We wanted everything to be as normal as possible leading up to that. And we wanted her well rested and in a good mood, because, you know, baby's got to get that nap. So, anyway, I went to pick up Zach, and he couldn't answer the phone because he was driving and he didn't have a headset at the time. So, and at that point, I want to say I had already lost my mucus plug a little bit, or I had been bleeding a bit, getting ready to. and a couple days prior to that. So we go, and he wasn't able to answer, but I went to where I normally pick him up. Well, then he called me. I said, hey, I'm here, but I didn't know where I needed to pick you up at. He said, just kind of pull around here. I'm with a different guy, so I'm not in that other parking space. So I pulled around. I said, well, hey, by the way, we're going to the hospital tonight, and Mom's picking up Lydia at US 1. And he was like, okay. I had already packed him a bag, got everything ready. I said, I really think she's coming today. We dropped off Lydia. Poor Zach was so tired, and we went in, and on the way there, my contractions just slowly were stopping, not being as intense and kind of going away. And I think it was just because I was getting excited. Adrenaline, in a way, was taking over. Anyway, we got there, and they completely stopped. Well, then we go up to labor and delivery, and I was the only one there. A woman had just been moved out. She had twins, and vaginally, I do believe, which is really impressive, because a lot of women have, these days, it's just routine for a C-section. So that gave me a lot of hope about this hospital. I'd never delivered here, and I went in, and they checked me, and I was at a 4, and I said, okay, I've heard of this. I can be at a 4 for days, and they're going to send me home unless I progress. And I said, okay, so are y'all going to watch me for an hour and see if I progress any? No, honey, you're at a 4. You're staying. I said, awesome. So we sat there for a little bit, and the nurse was saying they're going to come back and administer Pitocin and break my water. I said, I don't want that. I'd really like to let my body naturally do what it's going to do. I was with the midwife at Dr. Bowles' office, and that was my birth plan, and that's what I wanted to do, and they are both on board with that. Well, Dr. Chisholm is here tonight. And I said, okay, well, he works in their office, so I'm sure he knows my birth plan. I'm sure if he calls Dr. Bowles, he'll know what I wanted, what I'm trying to achieve. And so she walked out, came back in, said, okay, well, we're going to move you over to labor and delivery, and they're going to administer Pitocin and break your water. I said, no, ma'am, they're not. And that's when Zach spoke up over my shoulder and said, she does not want that. She wants to try to labor naturally. That's why we've gone to see a midwife for as long as we have. I was with the midwives in Kansas before we moved, up at Lawrence Memorial. They were fabulous. But they're from an OB's office, so there are gynecologists there for if you become high risk and need that extra intervention. But I had planned from the very start to try this, and everyone was on board with that. But these nurses were like, well, don't argue with him. I said, I'm not going to argue, but I'm going to advocate for myself. And then she said, well, I'm getting off anyway, so I don't care what you do. What a great attitude to have, right? So she left, thank God. And this sweet RN comes in. She was an older lady, and she had a very beautiful accent. It was almost kind of French sounding, in a way, but something else, a different accent along with it. And coming to find out, she studied midwifery in Africa for over 10 years. At that point, I remember looking up when she told me that. I want to say Zach had walked out for a minute to answer a phone call or let work know that he would not be able to go out tomorrow. And he came back in, and I was in tears. I said, God has answered my prayer, because I am going to have this baby naturally. And I went on to explain who she was. And then I had a really sweet RN nurse. She was new and learning under this lady, and which is wonderful. I think if you have a nurse that is very there and in with the, let's make this less intervention as possible, that's who we need to be putting our new RNs under to learn from. And she was great. I understood in a hospital setting you can't be mobile. I get there's a lot of rules, and that is just because of lawsuits and if you were to fall. So I'm totally cool with that. But I should have been able to sit up in a recliner, and you can advocate for yourself, and you have to learn what you can and what you cannot. And honestly, someone told me they work for you. It's not the other way around. But these people work for you, and if it wasn't for you, they wouldn't have a job. Their job is to make sure you and baby is healthy and that delivery goes as good as possible. But also, they don't need to add to your stress. They need to help mom achieve her birth plan. And birth plans don't always go as planned. That's something that you also have to remember. And that's okay. They don't always go as planned, and that's okay. But if nothing is wrong, they definitely shouldn't force you into anything that you're not okay with. So, we administered, no, what am I talking about? So, they came in, Dr. Chisholm came in, he checked me, confirmed I was at a 5 now. They asked if the young nurse could check me. I said, of course, and the other nurse, and they all got the same thing. They said I was about a 5. And he said, you're about a 4.5, but we're going to round up to a 5 because that'll make it so. And I was like, sounds good. I told him about the nurse prior and how she was saying this and this and this was going to happen. And that sweet midwifery nurse said, I will let Dr. Chisholm know what you want, and we have your back, and we're going to help you make this happen. And it's like the clouds parted, and God was like, here you go. And he set up everything so perfectly for me. He truly did. And for Zach was able to be there for the birth of his baby. So we go along, and we call and let everyone know. Zach's stepmom and dad showed up, and then his stepsister and brother-in-law showed up, and then my mom showed up. She wanted to be there, and I totally understood that, so she dropped Lydia with Danielle. A lot of our plans kind of changed, but I was cool with that. I wanted Lydia to get good rest, and I knew that would be fun for her to stay with Chandler and my sister and Matthew and Blaine. So mom got there, and my contractions immediately started picking up. They were things I had to breathe through, but I'll tell you right now, these were okay. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to listen to my music. I'm going to speak words of affirmation over myself. I'm going to breathe. I'm going to relax, and I'm not going to have any fear. And I'm going to get through this. So I did that. I got all the way to about 12:30. And I remember them checking me, and I was progressing fast. They said, you're at a 7, maybe an 8. I remember the learning girl checked me first. She said, I think you're at an 8. And they checked me, and they said, no, about a 6.5, 7. And I was like, okay. And they said, look, it's going to be maybe another hour or 2, and you're going to have this baby. So we were all excited. We were all excited, and I was like, okay, well, if I start progressing fast, then we're going to need someone to bring Lydia. If Nana can go pick up Lydia or something, if someone can bring Lydia. Because Lydia is going to be the first one to meet him. I remember we were talking about a lot of things, but we were also like, we might just wait and let her sleep, and she won't be the first to meet her. We'll let the people that are here meet her, and then first thing in the morning, mom will go home and get her, and let her get good rest, and then mom will come back with her the next morning. We were totally cool with that, even though that we really wanted her to be the first one to meet her and touch her. But anyway, it was nearly 1 o'clock, and they said, you're going to have this baby soon. I said, is there any way I could get some Phenergan? Because they have been a little content, and I just want something so I don't get sick, because pain makes me sick, as I've said multiple times. And so I was getting really nervous, and they said, well, we don't do that unless we do IV drugs with it. There's this pain medication that they give with it. It's apparently like duoed together. Like there was only one bag hanging. And I said, okay, I think that'll be fine. She said, if it'll just calm you down a little bit. That way, your blood pressure doesn't spike. Because anytime like a contraction would happen, my blood pressure would go up a little, but it wasn't intense. Anytime they would check me, it really went up, because that was pretty painful. Being checked is pretty painful. But anyway, it was, I was totally up for it. I said, okay, I'd be fine with some IV meds and some Phenergan. So they administered that, and it took away all my pain. I didn't have any contractions. I was so calm at 7 centimeters. No pain. I remember doing a video to Lydia. It's like a 5-minute video, or Everleigh, and to Lydia. about how we can't wait to see her, and then to Lydia about you're going to be the best big sister, and I was out of it. Like, it had me so loopy. But then I slept from 1:15 to 7:30 the next morning, and yeah, I felt pretty good. Well, then things started getting interesting. I woke up at about 7:30. I'd woken up a little in between the night, and they had checked me and things like that, and I was still pretty steady at like a 7-8, closer to an 8 at this point. And Chad and Alicia had to leave for work. Donnie and Becky, I think, went and found like a place where they kind of sprawl out, and Zach could have that couch. Mom was still sitting in the, or no, I think Mama might have went ahead and left. She left shortly after Chad and Alicia did, I want to say, to go get a shower and get Lydia. So we were just waiting. They came in, or the nurse came in, and I could tell right away she just had a different personality. But I'm the kind of person, like, if I can tell someone's not really cheerful, I'm like, hi, I'm Ashby. I'm very, like, upbeat, trying to, like, get people out of their shell in a way, especially in that kind of a situation where you don't want to feel separated. You want to feel like you're all a team. That's a big thing. Be vocal about your birth plan, what you want. Tell the doctors, tell the nurses. Have it written down on a sheet. Have your husband know to advocate for you. Tell him exactly what you want so he knows what to fight for you. And Zach and I were on board with that 100%. She came in, and anyway, she was nice. I said, oh, you look so familiar. Honestly, she looked like one of my sisters, one of my stepsisters. And I said, what's your name? And she told me what her name was. Her first name and last name were the same. But she was just very dull. She didn't really have much personality. And I was like, oh, this should be fun. Anyway, they said, she checked me. I was still at an 8. I said, okay, but I'm a firm 8 now, so that was good. Doctor's going to come in, and I think he's going to want to break your water. I said, okay, I'm cool with that now. I appreciate y'all letting me have this to try. And that's what I told Dr. Bowles. My doctor came in at that point. My midwife was gone to Kentucky, so she wasn't able to, I think that was where she was, Kentucky or Colorado or somewhere. And anyway, Dr. Bowles came in. He said, okay, we're going to break your water now. I know that you didn't want it during the night, but if it's okay, we're going to break your water now. I said, yes, I'm all for it. He said, we're going to break your water, and that baby's going to come out. And I said, okay, sounds good. And I knew what to expect, so I knew that once they broke my water, the contractions would be intense. I wasn't having any at that point. I still wasn't having any. And I've heard that can happen. It's very rare. But I think God just knew what I wanted so bad. I think that was a lot of God's hands. You look back on things and you know, I wouldn't. That was God. God did that. But anyway, I asked if they wouldn't. I don't think they administered Pitocin. I know they do after birth because it helps contract your uterus. But I want to say I asked them not to do that. And then I think he said, yeah, we're going to do, I don't remember. Either they did or they didn't. I wish I would have fought harder. And in a lot of ways, I wish I would have said no to them breaking my water. There was no risk of infection at that point because my water was still intact. Baby was safe. I was safe. I should have fought a little harder and let my body do what it was going to do. But also, he was there that morning, and I don't think was due at the doctor's office till 10 or so. Or 9, I can't quite remember. So he was like waiting around for me, I do believe. Anyway, he broke my water, and immediately contractions were intense, just like they were with Lydia. Very intense, very excruciating. They were 10s. Surely they couldn't have been 10s, but I'd say they were probably 9s, getting ready to be 10s. What's hard is when you have them and they're back to back to back. Like, you have one and you brace, and then you take one breath and think, okay, you've got 5 minutes, but you don't. It comes right back. Those are the worst, and I had those right before she came out. It started off slow. I think I had them every 3 minutes, and they were lasting about a minute long, so really about every 2 minutes. But the nurse immediately would like come in and be like, okay, we gotta get baby back on the monitor. And I thought she was just being nice. I was the only one. There was no one in triage and no one on labor and delivery. This nurse, you could tell, was starting to get frustrated about the 5th or 6th time coming in, because I was doing exactly what I was doing the night before, leaning over, holding on to the bed rail, bracing against each contraction. And the thing about this is to not tense your body, to ride it like a wave. Really, don't block it out, don't tense it out, because that's going to make it more painful. Just like in a car accident, when you tense up, it makes the pain worse and the recovery worse. So they want you to ride it like a wave. Just bear down and try not to tense your body up the best you can. Just really relax. The only thing I tensed up was my hands. I tried to relax my whole body. That way, in a way, it would consume me and I could ride it. About the 6th time, she started getting frustrated, and I said, they're back to back, they're back. And then it like escalated. She went from 1 to 100, and she wasn't like yelling or aggressive, but she was like, okay, I need you to stay on your back because I can't keep baby on. Oh my God, she had to get up and stop charting. And I was at Fairview Park Hospital in Dublin, and if anyone wants to know her name, I will let you know. Because I don't think someone like that, I about kicked her out. It was to the point I about kicked her out, and I don't think someone like that should be allowed to work with women in that state. She was not helpful. If anything, she made my labor and delivery harder and scarier, and she had me very worked up. Then about the 5th time, I was like having 3 of them at one time, like one, and then think I'd have a minute to breathe, and I didn't, so I'd go right back on my side. She's like, you've got to stay on your back. I'm like, I'm laying down. It's not like I'm on all fours. It's not like I'm trying to have a water birth here, but I'm holding on. And I was in a fragile state. Like, you don't back a woman into a corner that is in transition. And I knew I was I should have known, because in transition, you typically feel like you're going to give up, and you cry. And you're like, bring me the epidural. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. You feel caged. You feel defeated. I felt so defeated. I felt like I could not get through it. And then she walked out. I remember she came back in and said, okay, I'm going to need you to stay on your back because because baby keeps slipping off and it's making the alarm go off. And I said, I can't. They're so intense. And I was almost there. I knew I had to have been almost there. And she walked out again, or she had said something. I said, what do you want me to do? Tell me what to do. And then she ended up saying my name, like Ashby, like talking over me. You know how someone like raises their voice to get your attention? Ashby. I looked at her, and she's like, we've got to keep baby. I'm like, you're not telling me anything differently, but you're not telling me how I can make this happen. You tell me what to do. Have you experienced natural childbirth before? And she walked out, and I looked at Zach, and I remember saying, I just feel so defeated. I need the epidural. Get them to get me the epidural. I don't want to. I've came so far. I've been going through this since 12 o'clock yesterday. Like, it had been almost 18 hours I was in labor. I'm like, no, longer than that. 12 o'clock, that would have been 12 plus 7, 19 hours in labor, 20 hours in labor. And I was still fighting, and I was like, but I feel so defeated. Well, then apparently the woman walked back in. She said, why do you feel defeated? I said, because I don't know what to do, and you're not on my side, and you're yelling at me, and you're telling me I have to stay on my back, but I can't during a contraction. And then a contraction was hitting, so I grabbed on, and then I want to say they checked me again, and I was at a 9, and she said, do you feel the urge to push? And I said, no. And she walked back out, and I had like 4 back-to-back. And in between those 4, I felt baby descend. And I immediately felt like I had to push. Like, I felt baby in between my legs. I was ready to push. But I remember she had literally walked out of the room after asking me if I felt like I had to push, and then having those couple contractions, and then feeling baby drop, and it felt like a slither roll kind of thing. I felt it all. It did not hurt. What the baby did not hurt, but it freaked me out. Like, I said, oh my God, she's coming out. And I was like, call the nurse. I remember being frantic, but also having contractions and just like, Zach, get him, the baby's coming out. And then I remember wanting my music playing. I think we had turned it off because of the nurse. I couldn't hear what she was saying. I had my music loud because I needed it. But she was honestly ruining my calm zone in every way. It's like really disrupting it. But anyway, Zach called him. They came in. She lifted my leg, and I guess she saw baby right there. She said, I see baby. Do not push. You do not want to push without the doctor. And this was the nurse that had been barking at me. I hadn't even met the other nurse yet that I remember. She came in. They were wheeling stuff in all of a sudden and calling everyone in and getting the doctor in. She said, you do not want to have this baby without him in here. And I understood that, and I did respect that nurse at that point, because you don't want to push a baby out unless there's a doctor here to position her in the way she should come out. Because nurses aren't trained to know that, the way the baby should come out, where it does not hurt the baby, their collarbone hurt the baby in any way, and it doesn't hurt you. It doesn't cause serious damage to you. So I did respect her in that moment. But then it was like, all right, Ashby, we gotta get you on your back. The doctor's gonna come in, but I need you not to push. But she had already made me so shooken up and worked up. I just wanted her out at that point. And I about said it. I want you out. I was like, I can't do this. I remember just like, I can't do this, because I was so worked up, and I had already gotten to that mindset and let the fear take over because of the way she had me so worked up that I wasn't going to be able to do this. I believed it wholeheartedly, and I was scared. I was like, I don't want to feel this pain. And before that, I had been pushing the pain out, and I was riding each contraction, and those contractions were going off the screen. They were intense, but I had a break in between. That's the difference between man-made contractions and natural contractions. Typically, you're going to have that space in between to breathe, catch your breath, and push again, or to ride them again. With man-made contractions, a lot of times they are a minute apart. Like with Lydia, they were less than a minute long, and they would have multiple peaks, and then I'd have a minute, and they would happen again. There was no break with Lydia when they gave me that Pitocin and broke my water, and there was no break after they broke my water. And I want to say they might have administered Pitocin, I'm not positive. There was no break. They were intense. They were excruciating. They were tens. They were straight tens. And then I understood something in that moment. I think they said I was at a 9 when they had came in and asked if I had the urgency to push. I was at a 9, and I think they were saying, if you feel like you can push, then push, even if you're at a 9, because I want to say I was completely thinned out. So it was safe. Baby had dropped and everything. But I realized something in that moment was, I wasn't even a centimeter dilated with Lydia. And they broke my water and administered Pitocin, and my contractions were just as intense as the ones at 9 centimeters I was having with Everleigh. And that's what you have to look forward to if you immediately go in and are okay with an induction, and you accept an induction, and you immediately get induced, and they break your water and they administer Pitocin. That is what you have to look forward to. You are going to be having contractions that you should be having at 9 centimeters. The scale of how painful they are, that's what you have at 9 centimeters. You're going to have them at 1. Before that, they were not that intense. I handled them. They were fine. They were intense. There was a couple times I was like, like you grab onto everything and you just ride it, but it's painful. But you can get through them. These are ones that it's like, oh my God, this baby has to come now because I can't do it anymore. And I was on my side, and I was like, my legs were, because she told me not to push, so I remember straightening my legs, almost like my body straightened out off the bed, although the bed was like this. It was like in a 90, this is 90, it was about like right here, degree angle. I had straightened my body out. So like, although the bed was like a 90-degree, my body was like this. I had tensed my legs so much because she said not to push, and I was too scared to push. Although my body was doing it, I couldn't stop. I felt baby continue to move with each contraction, a little bit and a little bit more. Then the other nurse, Zach was trying to calm me down. I said, push on my back. Like, he was doing so many things while they were doing their thing. Then one of the nurses stopped, the sweet nurse that I don't even remember her name, got on my level, and she said, you've got this. I said, I want the epidural right now. Bring me the epidural. Give me something. She said, there's no time for that. This baby's here. You're going to push one time, and this baby's going to be here. And I said, and I looked at her, and I said, thank you. I remember crying and thanking her because I finally felt like I had that support, and I had that strong person behind me along with my husband. And you need that. You need to make friends with the nurses. You need to be on the same page. That other woman, I think, was just having a bad day, and maybe she didn't like the idea of natural childbirth. Maybe she felt like, oh, you need to just get an epidural and make it easy for me and the doctors. And that's typically how it goes, and I really think she had that mindset. I've seen her Facebook page since, and I know she has children. Maybe she has a problem with women who are empowered to try to do something. I don't know. Maybe she is just, maybe she's against women that are empowered to try to experience something like that. I don't know. I don't know her. I don't know her life, but I know what kind of bedside manner she had with me that day, and it was terrible. But I do know when that woman said, okay, let's flip over, they helped me flip over. They got my legs up. They waited till the doctor was right there. He said, okay, Ashby, we've got this. Dr. Bowles was right there. Poor Zach was basically my nurse on my left side. Typically there's two nurses on each side, and then there's the doctor. I didn't even want that girl near me. I don't know where she was at the time, but I know that other girl was right here with me. I want to say she might have been over his shoulder or something. But Zach was right there. He was basically my nurse on the left side, holding my leg. He, bless his heart, got front seat view of it all. And I remember them telling me to, whenever you feel like it, push. And I remember saying, I gotta push. And he said, okay, push then. And then he coached me on, okay, this is gonna be a little push. Make this a little push, not a strong one. Okay, now give this one all you have. That's the point of a doctor. That's the point of a midwife. To make sure baby comes out the way baby should, and to position baby the proper way. I remember with Lydia, she was turned wrong. He ended up having to turn her, or else it could have broke her collarbone, broke her back. I've heard a lot of things like that happening with babies. It could have damaged me really bad, which I did tear a good bit with Lydia. I think it was like a 1st degree tear or 2nd degree tear. It wasn't anything terrible. But I pushed, I want to say, I think it was like 3 sets total. You know how you push about 3 times in each set? I just pushed. Like, there wasn't that. With induction, they have like each set, and they say, okay, push, and they count to 10, and then you take one breath, and they say, okay, push again, and they count to 10, and then you take a breath, and then sometimes they do it again, and then you stop and you take a break, because your body can't feel it. Your body doesn't know when to push. My body was doing it. I didn't have to do anything. That's how intense my contractions were at that point. My body was doing it. Plus it was being forced. I want to say they gave me Pitocin. I'm not 100% sure. But once they broke that water, my body was ready. It was ready to start pushing. It was ready to do what it was going to do. And baby came out really fast. I remember feeling that slither initially, and then the nurses coming in. And then I remember pushing probably about 4 times, like, you know, them counting to 10 and then letting go. And then feeling her head. And I know they talk, a lot of people scare you when they mention the ring of fire. And it feels like tearing, like your body is coming apart. But I'm here to tell you that's not always the case. I know many women that truly experience that. My mom experienced that. I know a girl who got into the hospital just on time, and she experienced that. She had a very traumatic birth in a way. It was very painful. and birth is meant to be painful, but that's not meant to scare you. I think with how aware I was and how much I was trying to breathe, and I was speaking words of affirmation in my head. I can do this. You can do this. You can do this. Get this baby out. I remember one of the hypnobirthing videos I watched was reciting verses. Like, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And exhaling. Inhaling with the Lord is my shepherd, and exhaling with I shall not want. And I remember doing that. Anytime they told me to breathe, I remember just slowing down for just a second. And then I remember feeling her head pop out. And then I pushed, like I was pushing and her head came out. And then I just went right back into another push. And her body just came out. And I remember speaking those things in my head and breathing. But I remember a crazy noise coming out of me. It wasn't a painful, it was just an empowering, I'm going to get this baby out kind of voice, noise that left my chest. I'm sorry, I have terrible heartburn today. And I remember her coming out and then placing her on me, which I really liked about this hospital. They do all APGAR and everything right there. Once baby's placed on your chest, if everything's fine with baby, that's where she stays for an hour or more. And in our case, honestly, I want to say she had been on me for probably 2 hours, because like we waited. We had our moment with her. Remember, I even tried breastfeeding her, and she wouldn't. And then they brought the nurse around to help me, or the lactation consultant came around to help me, and we got her to nurse. And then we had Lydia come in. But I remember before any of that, I was still up in the stirrups, delivering my placenta, and he was checking me inside and everything, making sure. I remember he also did a catheter on me because I had a lot of urine buildup. He wanted to drain all that, because if not, I want to say, like, it can do a lot of damage. Your bladder can burst. Lots of different things could happen. And so he drained my bladder for me. And I remember just like everything after that, like everything, every touch. He wouldn't even be touching me. But I was so traumatized, not by labor, because I'll tell you right now, the only thing that was traumatizing about my labor were the contractions, and then that nurse. Pushing was nothing. The ring of fire did not hurt. It was not a ring of fire. I felt sharpness upwards. A lot of women feel it downwards. I felt it upwards. It was intense. It was a lot of pressure, but it wasn't like a searing pain. It wasn't like a paper cut getting lemon juice poured on it. It was just like a rubber band being stretched, like you can imagine your skin being stretched. It just felt like it almost felt like it was getting ready to tear, but it wasn't as painful as I know that sounds. If I can rate my contractions, I'd say my contractions were a 10. Although I don't think they would have been as bad if I had that support from that nurse. I really think I would have been calmer, so I wouldn't have freaked out so much, so then the contractions would not have seemed so intense. But I would rate the contractions out of 10. I would rate pushing and delivery probably a 5 or a 6. Sincerely, the fear was greater than the pain. But I remember I was very shook up. He's like, honey, I'm not doing anything. But I was so shooken up. I had tears running down my face. I don't remember him leaving. I do, and then I don't. I think I thanked him. Then I started liking that nurse a little bit better afterwards. She helped me get to the restroom and clean up. She was nice then, but as a labor and delivery nurse, I don't think so. I think she'd be better on the postpartum side, truly. She just was not very supportive. Then I really didn't like. Then we moved to our postpartum room. They were not very nice. The labor and delivery rooms were super nice. The postpartum rooms were old and needed some updating, and they were small. Then I really didn't like that it was like a community. Like normally, like postpartum is like a community of postpartum mothers, and then a main place where you go and you can right there at the nursery where you can get stuff and do this. It was almost like we were separate from the nursery area. And my babies don't go to the nursery without me. I never ask for a break with both of my children. I never just send my kids off. But right after we got to our postpartum room, they came and they were like, we're going to give her a bath. And I'm like, okay. My food was there. I was ready to eat. They said, well, we take them to the nursery. I said, okay, and we can go with you. They said, you can stand on the other side of the glass. So we couldn't even be right there with her. I like Statesboro, East Georgia's hospital, because they bathe baby right next to you, which is great. You can watch her first bath and everything, but we were like 15 feet away when they bathed Everleigh, and she was on the other side of a glass. But we watched her roll in and we watched her roll out, and we grabbed her right at the door. But it was a good experience. But my whole thing is definitely research hypnobirthing. Research videos that you can listen to. Write down Bible verses that encourage you. Write down words of affirmation that your husband can put all over the room, that he can speak over you, that you can read to yourself. And practice your breathing. Do it every night before you go to bed. Put your earbuds in, lay down, fall asleep to listening to it. That gave me a lot of peace. And it really helped me control my mind and my thoughts. That way my fear didn't get the best of me. And the main thing is, don't go into it with fear. Go into it with determination and confidence and peace, and fight for what you want. Advocate for yourself and do the best for you and your baby. If you choose to go in and immediately get a C-section, then do that. That's all a decision you make with your doctor. I know a lot of women feel like that's better for them. If that's better for you, then go for it. If you already know you're going to get that epidural right off the bat, then go for it. Say as soon as you can get it, sign that paper, say that's what I want. And if you want to do natural childbirth and you want to have as little intervention as possible, then go for that. Advocate for yourself. Be vocal. Have your birth plan written out. Let them know what you want and advocate for yourself. Don't let these nurses and doctors push you around. Let them know, this is what I want and I need you to help me achieve it. If you have any questions, please feel free to private message me. I'm Morgan Lovall on Facebook, and you can message us here, I do believe. Don't forget to subscribe to this video. Thumbs up if you like what I had to say. And mamas, we're awesome. We can deliver babies through our bellies, vaginally, and we're amazing. We endure so much pain and we go through so much work to bring these little humans into the world. And whatever way is best for you is the way you should do it. Don't ever feel like anyone's bullying you into it. Don't let anyone influence you. Do what's best for you and for your baby and for your family. And I pray that you all have safe and healthy deliveries and healthy babies, and that you just are happy with your decision and you're at peace with whatever decision you make in delivery. Thank you.